Hello and welcome to the second new moon tarot reading for Sunday the 23rd of February. Uh, what a past few weeks this has been. It really has. And I say that smiling, but also for a lot of people, it really hasn't been anything to laugh about. And we all seem to be up against it in one way or the other. Nobody that I have spoken to has not encountered something, either from the past or from inside or both, that is really coming up to be asked to be dealt with. And so I'm really hoping that this reading for this next 4-week period, 28-day period, is going to bring you something that you can use, something that is really very useful for you, that you are able to apply in your life, and that you are able to then give greater context to your life with. So it's a way of situating yourselves in your own lives, understanding maybe an aspect that has been a bit of a mystery up until now. And it could be an aspect of yourself, as much as, I spend a lot of my time saying, why the hell do I do that? Why do I keep doing that? That's one of the other ones. So sometimes really the cards don't necessarily have to explain what's happening outside. They can sometimes shed light on a particular behavior, a particular habit, thought pattern, or something that feels like it's coming at us from outside, whether it's through a person or another kind of situation that feels altogether familiar. And yet we have no way, even as familiar as it is, to break it. For some reason, we seem to feel a sense of helplessness in the face of events that are incredibly familiar. And in fact, the more familiar that events are, the more helpless that we feel. Now, it's interesting that I'm going off on this tangent. I have no idea why, so maybe the cards are going to be able to explain that for us. I have shuffled the deck. I have drawn the 3 cards. They're face down. As always, I always read with you, alongside you. I don't draw the cards in advance and then plan something to say. This is a spontaneous read, as it always has been, because I do think that works best. For those of you unfamiliar with the way that I read, I do a 3-card reading nearly all the time. Sometimes I'll draw an extra card if there feels like there needs to be some clarification around a certain thing, a certain aspect where it feels a little bit obscure. But otherwise, the 3-card reading comes in the format of the first card is the foundation card. So that's something that is proving to have its roots in the current situation. It's influencing the current situation. It's already happened. So just bear in mind when you see the first card that is something that has already happened, is already happening, may have happened a very long time ago, may just have happened before you sat down to watch this, but it will be then playing with the current weather, which is the second card. That's what is coming up that's really worth bearing in mind to look out for in the next 4 weeks. It is going to be a theme. It may not be the only theme, but it is going to be a theme and a significant theme. And then the final card is the one where hopefully in some way I give the reading back to you. And it is the agency card, the tool that you can use in order to act on your circumstances or to act on yourself within circumstances that feel out of your control. And so in that way, then you are interacting with the reading rather than simply receiving it. Receiving it is one thing, and then working with it creates a whole different kind of magic of its own. It is really, it's the difference between having a 2-dimensional picture and then a 3-dimensional picture, and then the 4th dimension obviously is when it comes to life. It works through time. So I encourage you to work on your own surroundings or work on yourself in whatever way that the 3rd card describes. And if the card feels like a mystery, then maybe perhaps see that mystery as part of the work itself. In other words, it's not something that needs to be understood straight away. Perhaps the agency card is there to, it's a way for you to grow into the card, to understand the card, that actually the working out of the card and the working through of that 3rd card for yourself is the meaning of the 3rd card, rather than something that you need to acquire and understand up front. So I am now going to turn the 3 cards over one at a time, see what happens, and see how they all pull together at the end. So this is the new moon tarot reading, and it is for the next 4 weeks and beyond, because we will always have the cards influencing what's happening afterwards as well. It's not just simply for the 4 week period. This is a kind of accent, sort of building up into a crescendo and a diminishing, but there's always that resonance of that reading that then carries on through indefinitely, because you never forget anything and you never leave anything behind, for better or worse. Okay, so this is the foundation card, and this is what you are coming into. It has already happened or is already happening, whether that is a long time ago or now or several times. It may be a recurring theme. So this is the Chariot. As you can see here, it's quite a specific version of the Chariot. When I first saw the Chariot card in this particular deck, it did take me aback a bit, because it is so modern. It's such a modern take on a card that really normally has a chariot, and yet here we have a Formula One racing car. So the Chariot is a major arcana card. What has been going on, what is foundational to this, is something to do with the soul. It is something to do with what you have been working through at a soul level. It may well have filtered into your day-to-day actions. It may well sort of talk about something that has arrived in your life that is particularly for you. As you can see here, the driver, which almost feels like a reflection of yourself, but may be reflected through somebody else, has their sights on you, and they are coming at you, coming for you, coming towards you. This is a meeting. But to go back to the classical interpretation of this, because it's very much here in a Formula One racing car, and Rorig chose this particularly well, is that the Chariot is really about lining things up in order to get things ready for forward movement. So the preceding card in the major arcana is the Lovers. It is that meeting of the other through the mirror. And that meeting of the other is the meeting of opposites, the meeting of opposing forces. It is the feminine coming into the masculine. And the Chariot is very much that coming together of that kind of energy. But in order for it to be used in a way that is useful, that creates forward movement, you have to have things lined up. So I often talk about the racehorse that needs to be in the stall before the stalls open, before a race. So you see a lot of horses jumping around before they get in, and sometimes the horse is disqualified because of that. It's not ready in time. So it really is about having this phenomenal force behind you that you need to create readiness for. So with a Formula One race car, not that I have driven one myself, but I have seen Richard Hammond drive one on the TV and in Top Gear. And I remember thinking, well, if an accomplished driver like him can't get it right, then I'm not sure how many people can. He just couldn't get the car moving without stalling. He couldn't get the wheels aligned without it going off course. It is a finely tuned machine, and it has a tremendous amount of power behind it. And yet it is very light. So you have to have everything lined up in order for it to move forward. There is a tremendous amount of skill to bring that together. So there's a tremendous amount of skill to bring the forces of masculine and feminine, not male, female. It's not necessarily about a man and a woman, but the inner forces of masculine and feminine, the directed, forward moving masculine yang energy that wants to go, go, go. And then the feminine yin energy that is simply about being. It's more of a spiral instead of a straight line. It is about being in the moment. To the masculine, it can feel chaotic. So you put those two forces together without any sense of homework or preparation or skill. And, well, you either go into a spin or you go nowhere. But to put it forward with consideration, to get everything lined up, to get your ducks in a row, excuse me, to get your ducks in a row, then you are able to harness that energy as much as possible. So that's what's been happening. Whether you have been able to harness the energy, or whether you can feel the force or the surge of something coming together inside you, and yet you can't quite get things together in order to move forward. It's the flavor, it is what you are bringing in. And there is no right or wrong way to do this, in as much as where you are is where you are. It is your particular learning curve So if you are feeling like one of those horses outside the stalls that's still dancing around and not getting ready, that is where you are. You are obviously still learning something. There is obviously still work to be done. There is something to be experienced in that dance rather than being inside the confines of the stall, if you see what I mean. And it may not always feel like that. It may feel like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or even 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of process. But it is, it's very much yours and it's your own. So the Chariot, I'm just going to read what it says here, if there is anything in particular. So it says start. So I'm just going to take that. It's start, it's begin. It's begin wherever you are. But begin knowing what it is that you're dealing with. So you hear you are, you have, and this is something that's already happened. So maybe it is that you've started something and you may be going apace, you may be working through this really well. You may find that your momentum is going really well. You may have started and found that things are not going quite as smoothly as you think, or you've started and then you're not sure why you started in the first place. So any one of those could be the foundation for what's going on now. But it is for you. That's the thing. It is for you. I mean, if you look at that charioteer, the Formula One driver, it is for you. That figure, that shrouded mystery, the other, is not looking anywhere else apart from you. So bear that in mind. This is not for anyone else. So your journey, however it's looking at the moment and whatever it is that you're feeling, is your own. And the sooner you own it, that's part of getting your ducks in a row for the current weather. So the current weather, this is what we're moving into in the next 4 weeks. Another major arcana card. So whereas the Chariot is 7, we now have the 8. We have the next one. So that to me suggests that no matter how you're feeling about this, there is a sense of forward motion. There is a sense of a natural progression happening, even if it feels anything but natural. So you have the Chariot, which is about bringing these forces together. And so strength is here about taming the forces, living with them, understanding the dual nature of particular aspects of ourselves. So whereas with the Chariot, it's that sense of the go-getting versus the waiting and assimilating, the yang versus the yin. This is the force of, as you can see, it is what is human, the intellect, and then the instinct, what is animal in us. What we tend to call the Puritans that we are at heart, our baser instincts, but which actually, if you look at the line here, I would say are more noble instincts. They are animal in as much as they are, unfettered by our judgments. They're not subject to our judgments. They simply are instinct, whether that is our sexual instinct, our killer instinct, our go-getting instinct, our instinct to thrive, to survive, to fight, to flee. It's all of those aspects of ourselves that when we are able to bring them in line, we are able to coexist, not only coexist, but thrive alongside each other. So if you look at this particular strength card here, the woman who is naked, who is unashamed of herself, who is in throes of ecstasy, is, as far as I can see, entirely safe, and not only safe with that lion, who is a part of her, who is an extension of her, but is safe and protected. So that lion is simply not just simply being there with her by her side and not attacking her. He is the sentinel, he is the lookout, the guard, the custodian of her sensuality and her sexuality. So this really is about being able to live as both human and animal, whatever that means. So if I look at the card, and so strength is also la force in French, and in one of the other decks, the Thoth deck, which is very much the Rohrig takes its cue in many ways from the Thoth deck, but actually still calls itself strength in this particular deck. But in the Thoth deck, it is lust, which is a very, very charged word. And Crowley, being the kind of person who really wanted to set the cat among the pigeons, as you can see here, it was really quite he wanted to push boundaries. He wanted to sometimes antagonize. He wanted to be an agent provocateur. And lust is really about the idea of the whore of Babylon unashamedly being herself, even with the threat of being thrown out and of death hanging over her. She is unashamedly her own sexual, sensual self, which basically showed everyone up around her who disagreed with her and who pilloried her and who eventually destroyed her as being, well, it showed them up for who they really were, which is, absolute deniers of that aspect of our humanity, which is very much a natural part of who we are. So if I look at the card, lion, passion, emotion, manifold creative talents, power, and the integration of animal forces. So that is what is going on in the next month. This is very much a fiery card, a very charged card. It is a card that doesn't apologize for itself. It is unashamed. And I'm going to, that's a theme that's going to keep coming up. And so when I say this, it's really, I'm emphasizing this because normally if you say that, you will be implying that the environment is less than forgiving, is less than understanding, is less than welcoming to this particular kind of energy. This energy only happens because it happens in contrast to what's around it. So the whore of Babylon was only a whore because she was a whore because that's what people called her. So there had to be an element of strong resistance to who and what she was. And in the same way with strength, there is no work, there is no soul work to do with strength unless there is the resistance to that. And that resistance may be from outside. You may get that from outside, and it may come from inside. But let me just take a step back and talk about this sexual instinct, because it doesn't necessarily mean, sex. It doesn't. It means embodiment, sensuality. It means a lack of embarrassment or shame or the need to apologize for anything about who we are. But more to do with the embodiment side of things, our natural inclinations, what is coming out through the body, from the body, not from the mind, not necessarily from the emotions either, though emotions will play a part, the mind will play a part. But this is visceral. This is the kind of stuff that comes up and you wonder yourself where it's coming from. And again, it does not necessarily have to be sexual, though it may be. But it's interesting also that this is mirroring the coming of spring as well, when everything gets reanimated, comes back to life. It's almost as if there is an extra kind of oomph that comes up with this when things have been dormant and they've been pushed down and under by the cold, wet drudge. Well, certainly the cold and very wet drudge of the UK winter at the moment. But there's almost, by contrast then, an even more of an upspringing and upswelling of this particular kind of energy. But with this, so it's not necessarily sexual, but it will feel embodied, and it may feel powerful, and it may at times feel a little bit too powerful. And one of the things that I would ask you to question there, given the fact that this is a soul card, is when has it been that you have called yourself too much? And when has it been that you've bought into the stories of the fact that you are too much, that somehow you need to just calm down a little bit, you need to stop talking so quickly, you need to stop being so exuberant, stop being so dramatic, stop being so opinionated, stop being so. See what I mean? So this is really about taking the time in this environment, I would suggest, to question too muchness, to question the idea of when it is that we have a story about ourselves, to keep ourselves smaller and to lock that lion away. And the interesting thing is that if you locked that lion away, as you can see in the card, that woman would be wholly naked and very vulnerable. That lion, that sense of I am who I am and I am the king of the fucking jungle, is there as a protective force, and it is coming from inside. This is not about You relying on anything or anyone outside to do that, because you know what? Nothing is permanent in this world, and you are with you for as long as you are here. So that lion is an internal lion. That is the one that comes up from within and sits there and protects you and is simply what it is. A lion does not apologize for being a lion. And if you have seen a lion in the wild, they are majestic, beautiful creatures. They can be shocking in their behavior to us genteel, cultured, civilized human beings. You know, their behavior can seem cruel at times. They can be lazy, particularly male lions. I know that male lions seem to have very good PR. But male lions tend to sit back while the female lions do the hunting most of the time. So male lions can look majestic and they can be majestic. They can be absolute predators. They can be completely protective. They are gorgeous, and they are also lazy and feckless sometimes, though that's our human judgment on it, and apparently cruel. And yet, to the lion is just simply being a lion. So I'm saying this is not a license to be cruel, because if you know that you're being cruel, then that's not being a lion. It's just simply a license to be who you are. And if you're not sure who you are, then maybe part of this idea of the strength card is to start questioning the scripts that you've been running in your mind about too muchness, and about what needs to be quietened down, and where you need to put things away, and where you need to just behave and conform. And just simply questioning those can open up doorways into experiences that are different and new, and go towards integrating that aspect of the major arcana, that 8th card, the strength card, as you shift along the path of your soul's journey. So that is the current weather. That is what you will be encountering inside and out. That is a particular theme this month. And this is your tool card. So as you are working through all of this, this is one of the things that you can use. And we have the 3 of Wands, which is virtue. So the Wands card, let me just explain the Wands for those of you who aren't totally familiar with tarot. Wands are fire. They are the first suit, as far as I'm concerned, in the minor arcana. They are the least tangible suit. So it's to do with, so you've got fire, and then you've got water, and then you've got air, and then you have earth. And the fire represents Eros. So it's a perfect card to go with the strength card. And the strength card is Leo, by the way, so a fire sign as well. So you've got this idea of Eros working with this very fiery strength card. And it is fire in the service of a very particular thing. And the card here that Carl Rohrig has done is incredibly descriptive about that. So fire is about creativity. It's about Eros. It's that sense of power that comes up inside us that we harness in order to bring things into being. It is pre-thought. It is pre-emotion. It is simply drive. Okay, but that drive then becomes more conscious as we work with it. So even while we then are aware of it and we can see how it's shaping our emotions and our thoughts and all of that, it's still very much at its core this fire that keeps us burning, that keeps the motor running. So the way that this works in the 3 is that, as you can see, the song that is coming up in my mind is "You Can Go Your Own Way." Now, I know that song with Fleetwood Mac was more of an angry breakup song than anything else, but just to use that particular line in isolation, it is really about going your own way. So there is this solitary figure walking down the road, and I just absolutely adore the plumes, the feathers coming out, these energetic feathers. So it's like feathery flames. They're not flames that burn, but rather they are just simply intrinsically a part of that person. They don't burn out. It's almost as if they lift them up. They are a signal. They are a support. They are a part of who they are. It's the non-tangible unembodied part. So it's that energetic part of a person. And that is what is leading them or guiding them, or is a very big part of that journey down the road. So in terms of virtue, then what you've got is that you've got somebody who is solitary. They may not be lonely, they are alone on this path, but that doesn't mean that you have to be alone in life. This is more about the fact that any path that you take that works with an integrity towards your own soul's purpose. So when you've got the Chariot coming in and moving in that big soul card, and then you've got Strength, which is really about coexisting and thriving off those animal instincts alongside your sort of human nature as well. The intellect, and everything that's civilized. You have the civilized and uncivilized. That's all part of that soul's path towards your own individuation. And this here is that path. It's that tangible, it's the everyday walking of that path alone. So it isn't that you don't have people with you. It's just that their path is going to look different as well. Your path is your own. It is uniquely your own. You are uniquely your own person doing your own thing in this integration game of life. And you are following your own path. So if you use this as a tool, it is about going your own way. If you feel torn or drawn away from what feels intrinsically right, if you feel like any option is dousing or diminishing that fire inside, if you don't feel turned on by what it is that you're doing, then you are not on this path. You're not on the path of virtue. So it is, and that's what I love about this word virtue. This is not the virtue of the virgin. This is the virtue of the untrodden path. It is the truth. It is the truth of one's own path that nobody else has walked before. So there is that idea that Krishnamurti spoke about, which I absolutely love, which is truth is a pathless land. The paradox being that there is a path, but the path is only there because you are there. The path wouldn't be there, or it wouldn't look the same with anyone else. And you certainly know, whether you are able to articulate it or not, or whether you haven't been aware of it up to this point, you know when you're not walking your own path. You know when you're trying to walk somebody else's, because of the way that it feels. And what it does not feel like this. It feels the opposite of that. And it's as if the Chariot as well wants you. It's guiding you. So coming towards you, and with that Chariot, you then turn around and face the same direction as that car. And then you hit the road. And there you are. That car is a part of you. That lion is a part of you. It's almost as if those feathers are like a mane, and you are walking down that road, which is entirely your own. It can feel lonely at times, but not for long. When you strike out on your path, it may feel that way simply because it feels different in contrast to the noise of the voices telling you what you should have been doing before, what you should do, what you must do, where you must go, who you must see, all of those things. When those go, that can feel awfully quiet for a while. But that quietness, in that solitude, there is something there. And that something there is you and your integrity and your own energy and your own forward motion and your own embodiment of, both instinct and also intellect, both that human and that animal. So I'm just going to look finally to the card to see what's here. And one of the words I see is integrity and self-confidence. So that is really it. It's integrity. And just a word about integrity. Integrity is a process. I think you're very fortunate if you're able to act off the bat with integrity every single time. I think that integrity is a verb as well. It is about finding your own integrity. And that is a process. And as you can see here, it's that part of that journey. So this is what is the reminder, is when all of this, when your inner whore of Babylon wants to step out and dance, then what is it that stops you? If it's something inside that feels like it has integrity, then that isn't then that's just simply a good boundary to have. That's not actually stopping you from doing anything that you would do or being anything that you would be. But if you are feeling like your fire is being put out, that you are being put down in some way, or somebody wants to clip those feathers, then you have a choice about what it is that you want to do, and whether you want to follow the path of least resistance, which is the one that, well, it's a paradox really, because it's the path of least resistance because maybe you've taken it all the time and you just want to please people and you want to have a quiet, safe life. But actually there is more resistance, I think, in that than in the path of the path of your own heart, the path of your own calling and your own energy. And really part of this process is discerning which one is which. This reading doesn't suggest at all that this is something that you will know immediately. So if you feel a sense of frustration about, well, how am I supposed to know who I am? How am I supposed to know where I'm going? What I'm supposed to be doing? How I'm supposed to feel? What's right for me? What's wrong for me? Those are the right questions. Those are the things to start with. There's nothing wrong with that. That is where you are. That is the path there. The person who is on that path is asking those questions. You know, they are asking those questions. The person who is not on their own path does not ask those questions. Those questions never even occur to them. So well done you for being there, for starting out on this, process of inquiry. It is an adventure in and of itself. And just as a final thing, I will put all three cards together. So you've got major, major, minor. What drives you and has driven you in the past, or what you can feel has been coming up, has arrived. It is now taking the form of putting opposing, apparently, forces together in order to make peace with your inner animal, to bring that in, to understand that we are multifaceted creatures, and that actually we need that instinct as much as we do the intellect. They are self-supporting. They live symbiotically with each other, and the tool is to choose what is uniquely your own way of doing things. I hope that makes sense to you. And if you have any questions at all about anything that I have spoken about here, please do feel free to email me, sarah@integratedtarot.com. You can leave a message in the comments below this video. Feel free to contact me via Facebook as well. I have a Facebook page as well, which you're welcome to join. And otherwise, I hope that you have a month of adventure, of realizations, of the beginning of integration, of a greater sense of integrity, and of striking out on something that feels uniquely your own. Thank you. Goodbye.